Yes, I'm still here. You probably forgot about me, huh? Didn't you? Well, I never go away. I'm the Dinky Boy. I'm here to stay. That's a good intro. That's a good one. Let's remember that one. Hello, everybody. It's your Dinky Boy here. Welcome to... I cannot figure out where to put this. Okay. It's your Dinky Boy here. Welcome to another Gamemaker Studio 2 tutorial. Before we go ahead, I want to talk about why I've been gone so long again. This time it's good reasons, okay? I started dating a lovely girl. That lovely girl is now my wife. Look at that. Bada bing! It was all very sudden. And so I was a little preoccupied with that. Also, I was spending a lot of time programming a new update to my game on Steam, which if you haven't checked that out, I'd appreciate it. There's lots of cool stuff that I added in there. It made the game like actually kind of work, mostly. But, that being said, I have now also, you can see, I am somewhere new. I am now in my own apartment, well, you know, with my new wife, and we've moved from Utah to Idaho. So, yeah, I am now here. And now that all apartments settled, we got everything like down, and then the virus hit, and now neither of us have jobs, and we're just sitting here, and we also just got a dog. It's great. It's awesome. I like it. No, but really though, I mean, it's given me some time to do a lot of programming and also do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff, which is super fun. But today, we're going to do a tutorial. Well, part one of a series of tutorials. And I'm gonna finish this one. It's not going to be like shooter platformer when we don't know when we're going to get a part 4. We have no idea. But hopefully we'll finish this one. This one should be easy. I want these to be more bite-sized tutorials. Not as heavy, but you know, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, let's go on. Let's do this. So, status effects, right? This is being able to add things like stuns, slows, silences, roots, fears, knockbacks, knock-ups, whatever you want to do for your game. Any sort of crowd control or hindering effect, or helpful effect if you want. Like a system that can keep track of that stuff, stack on top of each other, so you can have multiple status effects at once, different timers, all sorts of stuff that you can have like control over when it comes to your status effects. So, we are going to get started with a couple things. First off, I'm going to go ahead with a sprite. And we're just going to call this SPR guy, right? Nothing, he's going to be really simple. We're just going to go ahead and make him, let's do that. Let's make him pink. Let's give him a little pink, splash that in there, and then he'll have blue eyes. So we can go ahead and be like, bwomp, and bwomp. This is just going to be a basic character that we can use. In fact, if we want to make it even better, we can go ahead and, like, make it like this. And then also do like that. That way we can color him whatever color we want later on. But we have a sprite for a guy. That's all we really need at the moment. So, first off, we want to go ahead and go into scripts. So we want to create a new script. And this is going to be like our macros one. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this. And I'm going to call this macros. This is where we're going to define all of our constant variables that we're going to use throughout our entire project. So, and ideally, this is something that I want you guys to be able to add into your already existing games and be able to use from there. So, first off, we're going to do a list of macros, and we'll explain what these be used for in a minute, but these are constants that we're gonna use to keep track of information about each of our status effects. So, for instance, we're gonna have the type. This is just 0. It's basically just like an identifier number. So, what's going to be in our 0 slot is going to be the type of status effect it is. It's like stun, slow, silence, whatever, right? Then we're going to have our source. I'm going to put in that we'll have a source that like the CC is coming from, like an object. That's what we're going for, is an object. So that way, like, if you want to do status effects that are from like, if you want to stack status effects that are from the same person or not, or from the same object or not, you can decide that. C time, or current time, is going to be the slot that keeps track of how much time our status effect has left. And then we're going to do M time to keep track of the maximum amount of time. So if you want to show like a timer of how long the status effect is going to last, then you can refer to max time as well. And that's all we need to do for now. As we add in other status effects and stuff like that, we will need other things. But for now, we're gonna do stun first, and that's probably gonna be in the next video. We're just gonna set things up for now, a bunch of our functions. But these are the main things that we need, and what we need at the moment. So we can go ahead and close that. And then we're going to make our first script. This one's going to be like our actual script. We're going to call this SCR status. And then, of course, anything like variables or script names, you can change what they're called so that you can, of course, refer to them the way you like to in your project. These are just what I've called them. And this one's going to be real simple. We are going to just go status underscore all equals ds list create. So we're going to create, a list called status all. And that's it for that. I know it's like one line of code. We're not really switching out like line efficiency here when it comes to using the script. It's more like to keep things consistent, so that way anything that uses the status effects, we'll just do status. We can just write this and not have to remember other stuff. It's just kind of the way I like to do it. And plus, if there's anything else we want to initialize when we want to do something with a status effect, or that gets affected by those, we can add it in there too. But for now, that's all we need. Another thing that we're going to need, create script, and I'm going to say SCR status, and we're going to go check. Okay, so this is going to check if we have a certain status effect. And then I'll go over to my older project to take a look at this. So we're going to add some parameters here, and we're going to say object, or the object that we're checking to see if it has a status effect. We're going to say effect, and then we're going to add another parameter, and we're going to say source, where the status effect came from. Okay? And then we're going to initialize all those as variables. So we're going to say var obj equals argument 0. Then we're going to say var EFF for effect equals argument 1. And then var, and I'm going to call it src for source, argument 2. Okay. Now, first we're going to run this, and this we're going to run like in all of our other stuff too. We're going to say if obj.status has underscore status. We're going to run one of those checks first. So we're going to create this variable later when we actually make like our objects and stuff. I want to write down all of our scripts and get all of our functions done, and then show you how to sort of use them, like implement them later. Of course, as we add more status effects, we're going to do that. But we're going to run this if first. And like I said, you'll understand why in a bit later. So now we're going to add some stuff. So we're gonna add a for loop. So for, and then parentheses var I equals 0. Then we're gonna say I is less than ds list size. And we're gonna say obj.status all, which is our list that we're keeping track of all of our status effects, and then I++. So essentially what we are doing is that our status all list is going to be a list of more lists, which is going to consist of information using the macros that we set earlier. And like I said, it'll make sense later, of course. Well, hopefully. But like I said, we'll get to it. We'll get to it in a minute. So, in our for loop, so right now, we're checking to see, we're going to be checking our list of status effects and see if we have a certain one. So later, when we have like a moving character, we can check ourselves and say, hey, if you have a stun, you can't move, basically. And that's what we're going to do for us. So we're going to now we're going to go var val equals ds list find value. And for the ID of the list we're going to be looking at, we're going to be obj.status all. But then we're going to use the shorthand accessor for this. So bracket, straight line, or I wonder what that's even called. But it's like the shift button above your enter key. And then I, and then your closing bracket. So basically, we're finding a spot in our overall list of status effects. And then we're taking that spot, and that's going to be the ID of the new list, of like the list we're going to be looking for information about the status effect, right? And then the position in that list is going to be s underscore type. And then we're going to do var SOR for source again. But this is like a temporary one, so we can check things easier. And in fact, I can say temp src. That could make more sense. So ds list find value. We're going to do this again. Object point status underscore all bracket, and then our accessor line I close bracket and a comma, and then we're going to do s underscore source. And I might actually go into Paint to show you kind of more what we're doing here. So I'll open that up in just a second. So we're going to go back to our macros, and these are going to be important. So we're going to go down here. We're going to type out our status underscore all, right? We'll just do that and move that there. Then, in fact, actually, can I go back? Edit that, okay. So then I'm going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for instance. This is our status all list, right? Now, normally a list would just be our index value and then the value at that position, right? Well, we're using the values at these positions to create more, to be like identifiers for new lists of stuff. So for instance, now we take a look at our macros here, and we have our type, source, current time, and max time. So let's go and put that in there. So we have our I'll just keep this big. So we'll have our type, we have source, and then we'll have C time, current time, and then our M time, right? What we'll do is that basically we're going to add new stuff. We're going to go in here, and then we're going to have our type, which is our slot 0. I'm going to go ahead and write it because I think that'll just be easier. Or brush. So we have our type, which is, that's a 0. Our source is 1, 2, 3. So these are also just indexes in another array. So when we have type, we're getting to a type later, but our status effects will also be linked to numbers as well. So like a stun is going to be number 0. So if we go ahead and like we have a stun, so our type will be 0. Our source will be our, our instance ID of where it came from. Then we'll have C time, which we'll say is 45 steps, right? And then our max time we'll say is 60. So basically what we're looking at here is a status effect of a stun for 1 second, and it's currently 75% of the way done, or 25% of the way done with that. All right. So when we go like this, and we say, okay, we're gonna say our status all in the object we're looking for, and we're looping through it all. So let's say we're on, index 0, right? Then in that spot, it's going to use that as an identifier to dslist find value, which is S type, which is also 0. So then we're going to look at this one, and then we're going to look at this list right here and say, okay, now this type was 0. That spot is also 0, meaning it's stun. Now, why are we going to use lists of lists instead of a grid? The reason mainly for that is because the different type of status effects are going to need different information. So like a stun, for instance, you just need to know that you're stunned. But if it's a slow, which we'll say is a 1, we have our source, whatever, right? We have our time, which we can say the same thing. Why not? It's a 1 second slow, it's halfway done through, but now we need an amount, right? I'm just going to bop, 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 which will be like a 4, right? Like stun doesn't need that, right? Stun goes that far. But slow needs like an 0.5 for a 50% slow, right? So now that needs that extra thing. Now we could have empty ones, but I don't know, to me this makes more sense, because then you can have different links and stuff what you actually need. If you want to use grids, you can go ahead. It might be easier to understand and access. But I'm going with this because then we can have, it's easier to make variable amounts of information for different status effects, and to be able to add information for more complicated ones without needing to adjust the whole grid, essentially, of information. Anyways, now that explanation is done and may or may not have done anything, let's continue with our code. So right now we're looking into all of our status effects, and we're looking at each status effect and finding this information for each one, right? So we're looking at the type in that slot and the source for that slot, right? And then we're saving them as temporary variables. Now we're going to compare them to what we're searching for. So if we go if val equals effect, right? The temporary type, status effect type that we found is equal to what we're searching for, then we're going to take another look at it. So now I'm going to say if src is equal to code is equal to string any. This is something that, because normally we'd identify an object, right? Basically, with our script, we're going to give ourselves the option to put in an object ID or put in just the string any. Because if we put in the string any, it won't look for a source object. It'll just say if any of the status effects are stun, then be stunned. So then if later on we want to be like, oh, if you're stunned by this object, then the object that we're searching for, then give it back as true, right? But we also want to be able to look for any object. So if we put in it, so if we can just equal the string any, then when we use this script, we can just type in the string any, and then it will return true. It's basically saying we found the status effect, it was there, we have a stun in there, true, we have one, right? But otherwise, if temp src is equal to src. So on the other hand, if we are looking for a source object, then we'll go ahead and see if the source in this particular slot is equal to what we're looking for. So if it is, we're going to return true. And if we didn't do anything, like if we weren't able to find it all, we will return false. And we probably don't even have to do that, actually. Let's take that part out. Yeah, because if the value is equal to the effect, it'll do either one of those things. If it doesn't, then it'll just keep searching on. So that's fine. Then what we want to do is after our for loop, so we'll go here, highlight these brackets so we can find right here, we can say return false. So if we loop through here, and these returns didn't stop the script, because if we do a return, it'll stop the script. So if nothing else stopped it, that means we didn't find anything that we're looking for. So we return false. And after this, we're going to go else, 2 more curly brackets, we're going to say return false. Because then if the object doesn't even have status effects, like it's not even compatible with that, we're just going to return false, because then we don't want to try and search for these variables that aren't there. So this is kind of more a preventative measure to kind of prevent errors. So in case something accidentally, hits something it's not supposed to or whatever, it won't immediately crash your game, hopefully. So that's our status check. Then another thing we're going to do is, this is an important one too. It was just a SCR status, and I'm going to call this timers. Okay. And also notice that anything doing with the status effects, I'm putting in SCR status, just so when we're searching for different functions we can use, we can just SCR status and then look at our list that pops up with Gamemaker and see, okay, which one am I looking for, and be able to find it. So this one's really simple. It has no parameters. We're going to start with a for loop. We're going to say var I equals 0. We're going to say I is less than ds list size status underscore all, and then our semicolon, and then I plus plus, and then close our parentheses. So what this function is going to do is that it's going to reduce all the timers of our status effects. So that basically, so they have their duration, right? We're basically adding in our own alarm system for this, but using our own variable and whatnot. So this is going to say if, and we're going to use the same thing, ds list find value status all, I, and then the closing bracket. Sorry, I was thinking for a second there. And then we have s type and then we close our parentheses, and we're going to say greater than or equal to 0. So basically saying if our alarm hasn't triggered yet, like if there's still duration left on this status effect, we're going to say ds list set status all, our bracket, our accessor with the I, close bracket, comma, s c time, the current timer left, right? And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do ds list find value. We're going to do our status underscore all with our bracket, our accessor, and then I, closing bracket, our comma, and then s underscore c time to refer to how much time our status effects have left. We're going to close our bracket, and we're going to say -1. Because ds list set, you can alter the value of an object, but since we need to access our list first, our status effect information list first, we need to do that, and then we got to find that information again, but we need to subtract 1 from it, and then we're gonna set that to the current time. It's a little, this is kind of just the way we have to do it using the list on list thing. Oh yeah, and then also I think this was what reminded me of the main reason why I'm using a list of lists instead of a grid, is because that way then the amount of space we have, the amount of status effects can grow and shrink. Because if a list, we'd have to, or with a grid, we'd have to define its width and height, which we can do it so that it's available for 100 different status effects, but if you're never going to get there, then there's not the point of having an open. But then so having a list of lists, meaning that your list of status effects can grow, and then the type of information in each of those status effects can be different as well. Anyways, so then we're going to say if dslist find value status all bracket our accessor I bracket, and then we're going to s c time, so the amount we're looking at, the amount of time it has left is equal to -1, meaning that 0 is when it triggers, or is when it's like when it is its last instance, and then -1 we're going to delete that part. And this is easy because then we get dslist delete, and then the ID is status all, our original list of status effects, and then I, because it'll just delete that status effect, like that list in there. Yeah. So basically this is what's just going to take down all of our status effect timers, and when a certain one is done, takes it out of the list. It's done. We're going to go ser status add, and I'm going to go stack. Okay. So we're going to go add, we're going to add a parameter. We need our object that it's affecting. Parameter, we need our the type, so the effect. I'm going to go here if there's that object, and then we're going to need the source. And we might need, like I said, for now this is all the information we need. We'll need more later on, but at the moment this is all we need. So then we're going to go and we're going to say var object or obj equals argument 0, our same type of stuff. We're going to say var EFF is equal to argument 1, and then var src is equal to argument 2. That should be 2. Okay. So we need to do, I'm looking at my thing. So our status add stack will basically add a new status effect no matter what other status effects it has. So for instance, like a stun, in most games if you apply a new stun, it'll reset the timer, right? Like it'll reset that status effect for a stun. But like maybe in another game you want it to add to whatever stun they still have left, or whatnot. You can kind of change these to what we want, and we'll get into more of how to change these per status effect in other videos. But to add a new status effect that doesn't mess with anything else, it's pretty easy. Oh, and then you know what? We need our time as well, how long it's going to last. So we're going to do our var time equals argument 3. Okay, now we're all set. So we're going to do var data underscore list equals ds list create. We're creating another temporary list. So now we're going to go say ds list set. This is the way I'm going to do this. Data list. The position, we're just to say s type, and then we just put in effect, right? I'm using ds list set so I don't have to try and remember which actual spot they're supposed to go in the list. That's why we made the macros in the first place, so that we can just, so instead of saying ds list add, we don't have to try and do it in the right order that they're supposed to be in. We can just say ds list set, and it'll set the right information in the right spot. Ds list set, we're going to go data underscore list, and then s source. We can go ahead and then add our src. We have our ds list set data underscore list. Then we have s c time, the current time, which we just set to time, and then ds list set data underscore list s underscore m time. it's still equal to time because we're starting them off at the beginning anyways, but they both start off the same. Our maximum time won't change. Our current time will. Then at the end we're going to say ds list add obj.status all and data list. That's how we're adding our new list, the list that we created here, and setting it to a spot in our status all list. Alright, that was the easier one. Now we need to do SCR status. In fact, that says S. I need to fix that. That says STR. Okay, that's all fixed. Anyway, so let me go ahead. We'll fix this status add, and we'll say replace. Okay. Then we will do our same thing. We go add our parameter for object, add our parameter for effect, add our parameter for source, and add our parameter for time. And then we do the same thing with our variables. Var obj equals argument 0. And so of course I'm keeping these temporary variables all the same. They're consistent, so they're easy to keep track of across different functions. src, there we go. So that way you don't get confused, and so like I don't get confused with what goes where. I just know that if I'm looking at my status functions, that these refer to the same thing. So now we're going to do a similar thing to what we did with our status check, and in fact we might actually be able to just do that. Oh well, maybe. Yeah. Okay, for var equals I equals 0, I is less than ds list size, object status all, close our parentheses, do our semicolon, I++. Then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say if ds list find value, object point status all, our bracket accessor I bracket, comma s type is equal to effect, and I'm gonna put this on the line because they're kind of long. Ds list find value, object point status underscore all bracket accessor I bracket close bracket, comma s underscore source close bracket equals src. So we're looping through our status effects, right? New curly brackets, and then we're going to go ds list delete, object point status all, position is I. Then we can say SCR status add stack, obj effect source, and then time. We should be able to do it just like that. So basically this is going to loop through our list of status effects, check here if the type in that current slot is the same that we're looking for, and the source is from the same source that we're looking for. It'll go ahead and delete that status effect. So like if we're using a stun, for instance, and we want it to reset and just do the new stun time instead of the old stun time, then it will get rid of that one and then add our new one with our other function that we use. And if we just want to add just another thing onto, like for slows, for instance, we want to, like, we'll do it in another episode where we'll calculate like a bunch of slows together and find out like the combination of those slows. And so you want to keep them separate. Anyways, those are basically the things that we're going to need for now for our status effects. So in the next video, we're going to do like our stun, to do like our first status effect, to see how to implement these functions. Right now we're just setting up our functions. And then the next episode we'll get into how to use them and implement in your game. So thanks so much for watching. Always remember to have a complete breakfast. It's really important. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Adios.